So, good evening, everyone. This is the second Corona update. The first one was blocked by YouTube for having a song by some author. I think it was Eminem, and it was blocked when it wasn't normally blocked, so whatever. So, same thing again. I've gotten the coronavirus. My symptoms have been mild. I developed a very severe cough, which kept me up during the night. I was unable to sleep well for 2 nights. Afterwards, the symptoms vanished, and I got a mild case of diarrhea, which for me is what I almost always get when a disease passes. So it's still possible that I'll develop more severe symptoms as time goes on, but for the time being, it seems like it passed without much of a trouble. And I've been studying whether or not there's a connection between this and the various alien forces we've had in the past while interacting with us, and I'm leaning towards no. There are some interesting parallels between, for example, the Floater War and this particular event, but overall it seems like it's not them or any other alien entity. This seems purely to be bad luck and bad timing. In the recent while, the largest alien thing we've had was a Eve-inspired group of Guristas, which are the space bunnies, which you would call the Playboy bunnies in space, and some other groups who we are hostile to orbiting our planet Earth and having a powwow. And we gently drove them away. There was very little we wanted them to do here. We didn't want them to stay close to our planet at the moment. It seemed like an inappropriate time to have a large party. Even if you want to have the proverbial pox party to catch the disease, it seemed like the wrong time, so they were gently driven away. There was very little military activity. And the Floater War ended about a year ago. We established a peace that both sides can amicably respect. And Sectoids never developed into a war. It was a minor scuffle that ended relatively well. And currently, we are inviting all groups of aliens to come closer, but to be respectful of our boundaries and not to have hostile actions, but to come closer. So when you hear one of these supposed aliens say that they left me or this group or this planet because we asked them to leave, that is a bald-faced lie. We didn't ask them to leave. We asked them to stop doing abductions and crossbreeding experiments without government permission specifically. We very specifically told them that you can keep doing your shit, but you gotta inform the governments. This because it is virtually impossible for a person with an actual alien abduction story to get believable help from the government. And when the government is, even if it is covert, informed when they are doing these things, the chances of receiving adequate or proper mental health care is much higher. The whole crossbreeding without permission thing needs to end. You can take that for what it is. I attempted to quit smoking today. It didn't work. I had a hankering for tobacco when I woke up, which was too strong to resist, but I felt better for the short period of time when I was without tobacco than I normally do. It also made me feel like the psychological symptoms that I have are mostly associated with tobacco, not weed, which is something I've come across earlier. I have also made the decision to quit smoking both tobacco and weed for a while now, mostly because due to this thing, it's very difficult to even hook up with your links. And secondly, the phase of the growth process of my personal self and others around me has reached a point where I do not feel like I should be consuming market drugs, be it alcohol or tobacco or weed. I seriously thought about also quitting energy drinks, but I have concluded not to do so. They do, however, cause noticeable damage to the kidneys. Nice. Splat. Splurge. The car starts moving even though the guy isn't even in the driver's seat. That's clearly a bug. Can't move a car with just thoughts if it's not manual auto car. I warned the world community about this particular outcome due to their weird medical beliefs. I warned them directly and I told them if they don't do certain corrective steps, they're gonna be fucked. It's gonna cost them a lot more than if they do those corrective steps. And like I kind of suspected, nobody believed me, but the whole thing was clear from the start. It was clear that it's gonna happen. Our hospital level in the West is roughly speaking one hospital bed for 600 people, and that is woefully inadequate. That is woefully inadequate. The number of doctors per capita is also woefully inadequate. If we boost them to the highest level that the Western system has and leave it at that, we would need to triple our ability. So a country like Ukraine and Slovenia, for example, have a very large number of hospital beds. You guys have been hit by chemical weapons. That's clearly phosphorus or something. Chlorine. I think there should be a Left 4 Dead 3 and a Half-Life 3. Both storylines deserve a continuation. I need to know what happened to the Left 4 Dead world, what they did, and what it was like. Also, a thing crashed. We have geared our entire planet to be at the outermost limit of its sustainability, so when something actually does cause a hiccup in the system, we're all fucked. That's why we shouldn't do this. Because no country in the West has the medical capability of surviving without serious ramifications, even a single chemical weapon attack. They don't have the bed space available. And just looking at things like how few firefighters we have paid us in Australia, and it just, we're pushing this system to the edge and it's going to bite us in the ass. You need reserves, you need mobility, you need various things. You can't just push everything to the edge and hope you survive. That's not the way world works. So tomorrow I have two doctor's appointments. One with the nurses in this home place and one with the psych nurse for the injection. They have moved me to the 1 meeting per 3 months from the 1 meeting per month category. I hate that they think that I have improved because of their medicines. That is completely ludicrous. Said it before, I was homeless. Do you understand that when a homeless person gets an apartment, they improve? If that's the way your medical experiments are done, I'm not surprised that most of your drugs are crap. In the previous home, I was threatened and attacked very often, and you think that I started to improve because I got a medicine that makes me friendly to people. That's like Where's your brain, man? You want me to be friendly at a homeless shelter? Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? Yeah, but it's better for you. It's a good thing to be friendly to other people. Then they respond with friendliness. Sure, man. People in general respect each other and communism will win, right? The more friendly you are to people after the fall of communism, the worse off you'll be. You really shouldn't be friendly. The economics of the world show that the path where we are trying to be friendly with one another loses to the path of just competing. So you live in like the previous era. You live in somewhere in the Victorian era because you still don't understand radio. I said it before and I'll say it again. I don't believe there's a voice that you can't find by radio. Which I'm absolutely sure they'll consider to be schizophrenic, but hey, whatever. I have yet to come across information that would convince me that an alien species actually exists on Earth. In my opinion, every human can be tracked by radio. And they still believe that, for example, Russia does no hybrid warfare on Europe. Like they don't actually observe people and that they just like are kind with everyone and so on and so forth. Just idiotic. Absolutely moronic. Absolutely. So it looks like we'll be under quarantine for a couple of months. This was predicted by everyone who had a working brain. Told people back in high school to have a supply of at least around a month's worth of food and necessities. You're insane! What do you think is gonna happen? That's the point. I don't know what's gonna happen. You think you know what's gonna happen. And you think it's gonna be butterflies and ponies. I think it may be possible that something goes wrong somewhere and you may need to survive on your own. Oh my god, you're a survivalist! Ah! No, it's very good that those people are panicking, going to the stores and exposing themselves to massive amounts of diseases and then possibly getting the ramifications for their stupidity. You made the life of the survivor class very difficult on purpose, so when your life is becoming difficult because you were an idiot, you deserve it. You understand the concept of deserving something? You told the people who were preparing, planning, and doing things like building stockpiles, you call them idiots and various other things. Now they are not going to expose themselves to disease and they're going to live very well. And you're gonna fight at Walmart with an 80-year-old for a bunch of toilet paper because you're an idiot and you deserve everything that you're gonna get. You're an idiot and you deserve everything you're gonna get. The survivor class of people told you that this is gonna happen. They got the government on their side, and the government told you that you need at least like a week worth of supplies, most likely more, and most of you didn't even bother building that. If you're so poor that you live from hand to mouth, I can't blame you for not having a stockpile. But the people who can afford iPhones and don't build a stockpile of at least like 30 cans of tuna and like 50 packet of noodles are like, they're absolutely moronic. I don't know what goes on in the head of people like that, and I don't want to know. When the people who survive for a living, whose job it is to gauge the possibilities of certain things and how to survive them, tell you that your preparations are so inappropriately low that you're gonna die because of them, and you mock them to your face, and something bad happens, don't expect them to help you. Communism fell, we're not expected to help each other.
World War III has broken out. All across the globe, nations with nuclear capabilities are firing off hundreds of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ready to turn their targets into irradiated ash. This is, for all intents and purposes, the end of the world as we know it. But the US government is doing everything it can to preserve order in the aftermath of nuclear Armageddon. First order of business is getting the President of the United States to a safe and secure location. Is there a secret base beneath the White House? No. Well, what about the Pentagon? Still no? Wait. What do you mean that there's a secret presidential apocalypse bunker beneath the Greenbrier Vacation Resort in West Virginia? As it turns out, the Eisenhower administration foresaw this end-of-the-world scenario. In preparation for this catastrophic event, they built an apocalyptic bunker and fallout shelter 720 feet into the mountainside behind the successful White Sulphur Springs Vacation Resort. They were thinking bigger than just a glorified presidential panic room, too. This 112,544 square foot subterranean bunker, which is about the size of your average Walmart, was designed to sustain 535 members of Congress, as well as government staff, to ensure all occupants had a safe and pleasant stay. People are probably wondering what exactly goes on inside this huge bunker and how it was kept a secret from its construction in 1958 to its eventual public reveal in 1992. We'll answer all that and more, but for now, the sky's on fire and you need to get the president to safety. So you take the commander-in-chief on an express trip to White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Thankfully, he was already in the area, giving a rally to local supporters just 20 minutes away from the Greenbrier. The first strike is already on its way, so you better hurry to the resort before it actually hits and turns you all into the world's first Fallout 76 players, complete with all the disappointment of, actually playing Fallout 76. The Greenbrier is a historic resort that's hosted over 26 United States presidents since its opening to the public in 1778, so it's only natural that President Eisenhower, who frequently played golf there, would decide to put the world's most luxurious apocalypse bunker right underneath it. It's a race against time to enter one of the bunker's 4 entrances before the air is clouded with deadly radioactive fallout. Thankfully, being an impeccably trained member of the Secret Service, you get him there in the nick of time. You close the 25-ton blast door behind you, sealing out the bursts of nuclear fire. You're now officially in the Greenbrier Bunker, also referred to by the Washington Post as the last resort. President Eisenhower approved the creation of the Greenbrier Bunker as part of his continuity of government program. As the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union started to look like it might get hot, Eisenhower felt the need to anticipate a deadly nuclear exchange between the two superpowers. Mountainside bunkers like Greenbrier were constructed in order to preserve some arms of government in the event of a first strike against the United States. All the COG shelters needed to fit a specific criterion. It had to be within 5 hours of Washington, D.C., but far enough away to avoid heavy nuclear fallout. It needed to be accessible by train, air, and highway, and it had to have prior experience in working with government projects. The Greenbrier fit the bill perfectly. Eisenhower struck a deal with the owners of the hotel. He would fund the construction of a new wing of the hotel if the hotel would allow the U.S. military to build the Greenbrier Bunker underneath it. A deal was struck and simultaneous construction began on the West Virginia wing of the Greenbrier Resort, and the Greenbrier COG bunker hidden underneath it. This all came under a secret project codenamed Greek Island. The hotel and the government worked hand in hand to both create the facility and maintain its secrecy. These people were working with a real sense of urgency, thinking the bomb could drop at any time. Of course, keeping a project this huge under wraps is easier said than done. They were building a giant, complex building underneath an active hotel with hundreds of members of staff, none of which had government clearance. In order to reduce suspicion, they used all of the dirt excavated to make room for the bunker to make a new golf course on the resort grounds. Much of the resources used to build the bunker, such as the immense quantities of concrete and steel, were delivered under the cover of night to keep suspicion low. However, plenty of Greenbrier employees still cottoned on to the mysterious construction going on beneath the hotel and resort. These employees and numerous White Sulphur Springs locals were aware that some kind of secret bunker was being built. Rumors circulated that the bunker was intended for the president in the event of a nuclear standoff, and they had no idea just how right they were. In 1962, construction on the bunker was finally finished, just in time for the Cuban Missile Crisis, the tense 13-day standoff between the US and the Soviet forces that brought the world to the brink of nuclear Armageddon. The bunker was placed on immediate alert, even though nobody was ever officially evacuated to it. Government workers did, however, install a new 7,000-foot runway at the local airport for the secret purpose of bringing in evacuees from the country's capital in the event of a Russian first strike. This runway ended up being mainly used for tourists rather than refugees of a nuclear holocaust. As the missile crisis was resolved and the Cold War eventually came to a close, the Greenbrier Bunker thankfully never saw official use for its intended purpose. President Eisenhower died long before he'd even be able to make good on his investment. Letters from the Eisenhower administration revealing the paranoia and genuine fear of the possibility of nuclear annihilation were only released to the public in the last 10 years. But Eisenhower's paranoia just saved your life. You, the president, and a select group of government officials are the chosen few who will wait out the end of days in style. Thanks to the hard labor of Eisenhower-era workers, you're now surrounded by 5-foot-thick reinforced concrete walls, far from the cramped, dingy setting you probably picture when you hear the word bunker. The Greenbrier Bunker is extremely well appointed. During your possible rest of your life stay here, you'll be able to take advantage of state-of-the-art, for the early 60s, decontamination chambers. That'll likely get most of the radiation off of you. And that's better than having all of it, right? In actuality, all the technology in the Greenbrier Bunker is current circa 1992, including the decontamination chambers. This is because during the 30-year interim between the bunker's creation and its decommissioning in 1995, government workers who maintained the base in secret also continually updated the technology within it. For the most part, a lot of the technology in the base would be recognizable to the modern Secret Service worker, engineer, or government official. The conditions of the subterranean vault still seem pretty bleak compared to the West Virginia wing built above it. The new wing was built with 88 extremely luxurious suites, a state-of-the-art medical center, and a hall for trade shows. The new wing was built into a large hill that was then entirely hollowed out to make room for the bunker. While you might be tempted to feel jealous of the people in the luxury hotel above you, you really shouldn't. If they weren't vaporized in the initial blast, they're probably about to die a slow and torturous death from radiation poisoning, or be ripped apart by feral ghouls, or, the scorched. Seriously, Bethesda, you skipped Fallout 5 for that. At least in your bunker, you're safe from nuclear bombs and regular old Bethesda video game bombs. When you move further in, you'll find the 18 dormitories designed to house over 1,000 government officials and employees. There's also a built-in power plant with water purification facilities fixed to 3 huge water tanks capable of holding over 25,000 gallons of water each. That should keep you from dehydrating a few hundred feet below the storm of nuclear hellfire. But it doesn't stop there. Eisenhower and the people working under him were fully aware that the occupants of the Greenbrier bunker would be in there for the long haul, whether it was him or a future president. As a result, they went all out on the bunker. There's an additional 3 14,000-gallon tanks for fuel storage. Eisenhower also had the bunker fitted with a communications department for sending messages to whatever's left on the outside via the Presidential Emergency Broadcast System. The communication department was fitted with both audio and video production areas, so the president can continue to put out presidential addresses, even though the majority of the country outside are likely all dead. If people happen to get sick during your tenure in the Greenbrier bunker, Eisenhower's architects and planners thought ahead for that too. The bunker has a clinic with 12 hospital beds, as well as the resources for medical and dental surgery. However, if you did manage to escape into the Greenbrier bunker with a sizable portion of Congress, only having 12 beds could begin to present an issue. Congress members on the whole aren't exactly spring chickens. The average age for a member of the U.S. House of Representatives is 57.8 years, and the average age for a U.S. Senator is even older at 61.8 years. These numbers are a little concerning depending on how long you want Eisenhower's planned continuity of government to last in the Greenbrier bunker. Thankfully, the bunker does have a pharmacy and an intensive care unit to take a little of the stress off the medical department. However, this does raise one of the key concerns of the Greenbrier bunker and any fallout shelter in general. The resources are finite. While the bunker also has a laboratory, whether this lab could synthesize enough medication to keep up with the demand of the aging bunker population is an open question. Lucky for you, you wouldn't actually need to keep them in the bunker forever. Unlike the radioactive blast produced by nuclear reactor overlords, like the Chernobyl reactor in Pripyat or the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, the half-life of radioactive fallout from nuclear weapons is significantly shorter. By the time that the intended 6-month stay in the bunker is completed, the fallout outside will have fallen below dangerous levels of radioactivity. It's likely that the infrastructural damage outside will be massive, but the air will at least be breathable. But I've got some good news and some bad news before we get ahead of ourselves here. The good news is that you probably won't need to worry about depleting those resources during your stay. The bad news is that this is because over 90% of Congress is probably dead. This is because of a fundamental oversight that actually got the Greenbrier bunker decommissioned in the mid-90s. While the Eisenhower administration and beyond had the foresight to continually update technology inside the bunker, they didn't have the foresight to consider how missile delivery technology would adapt alongside it. When the Eisenhower administration decided on their location for the bunker using the 5 hours from Washington principle, this wasn't a problem. They anticipated nuclear bombs delivered by Soviet bombers flying over the North Pole, which was the accepted method of Soviet attack at the time. This would give U.S. officials several hours to escape the danger zone and get comfortable in the bunker. However, like a reliable pizza delivery service, an ICBM can now reach Washington from Russia in 30 minutes or less. As a result, if the nukes start flying and you're not in the immediate vicinity of the Greenbrier bunker, it's a sad day for you. You're just lucky the commander-in-chief happened to be in West Virginia at the time, or you would not have gotten him to safety in time. The downside is you're also going to be working with reduced technological capabilities, seeing as the military removed all classified technology in the 90s when the bunker's obsolescence came to light. These days, the federal government technically no longer owns the Greenbrier bunker. It's owned by the governor of Virginia and hosts 90-minute tours for over 50,000 tourists every single year. Despite the base no longer being a well-kept military secret, taking pictures inside the bunker is completely forbidden. But that's because large portions of the bunker have now been leased out as data storage. So even if Congress doesn't survive the nuclear blast, the corporate data will be just fine. Thanks for watching this episode of the Infographics Show. Curious about more weird hidden bases and bunkers around the world?
corporate data will
Why
be
not
just
check out
fine.
Why did the Nazis have a secret base in the Arctic? And the president's escape plan if the U.S. is attacked? Better
Lambo. Holy shit, 9 minutes. You got wrecked, Lambo. You got fucking wrecked. That's what happens when you start fighting the, best guy. What I wouldn't give, there's a lot that I actually wouldn't give, but that's a saying. What I wouldn't give for a professional role playing session where I play Germany from 1933. What I wouldn't give for the opportunity to have that on record and broadcast. That would be the fucking bee's knees.
A very early spawning pool there, Todd.
Yeah, getting cheeky here already in game number 1. I mean, real Nightshades, you definitely know where the opponent's overlords are going to be coming through.
Do you think he pulls the drones with this? Does he go all in? We've seen it so much in this tournament so far.
Yeah,
I
could be.
Like, it's crazy if we see that, because Serral shuts down cheesy attacks so regularly, but you never know.
Yeah, keep in mind these two, they probably play pretty often on the ladder, so if, as Lambo, you have some sort of information, that a build like
Right
that
ear
will give you a
clicks from
decent
the
chance
show.
of winning. And there it is.
Yeah.
He's going to pull the drones.
Ooh.
It's going to be a fast one here for game number 1. Can Cyril stop this attack? He went for hatchery, gas, and then pull. Is still droning up right now. He's going to realize very late that this is happening.
I don't think there's any hiding this. I think he's just going straight across the map. Does, of course, get spotted. And there we go. It is a hatch gas pool, or hatch pool, sorry, back at home. Yes, the gas is already mining. Cyril, will he pull off gas mining? He's going to pull one worker off. He's going to do the evolution chamber block, potentially, something like that. I don't think it works here on this map like it does on Ephemeron. He's going to try and hide a spine crawler in the natural.
Yeah, that's one of the best scenario here to try and hold on against this. You need to buy a little bit of time as well. The first spine crawler is going to go up for Lambo. Actually, the only spine crawler really that you try and get inside of the main base. He's getting on top of the drones here, still not quite fighting with those just yet. He's taking a lot of damage.
This is a drill battle. Whoever can drill their workers the best should probably win here. He dives to the other patch here. Lambo, of course, drilling his own workers into the patch as well, using the mineral walking pathing trick to try and attack. But you can see Cyril delaying, committing to the fight until his Zerglings are out. And now he does engage, takes a lovely surround and slaps it down. That's one. If you're left looking at your screen wondering, what did I just witness? Don't worry, we'll look at that on the telestrator later, I think. That needs to be slowed down in excruciating detail to really explain the finer points of it. But what essentially is happening is you can stack those workers up all on top of each other in the mineral patch pocket. And if the opponent attacks in there with their Zerglings, you can one-shot them because all your drones stacked on top of each other will all turn, take a swipe, and hit a Zergling and just kill it. And you can repeat that. But because Lambo was bringing his own drones, he was using the same maneuver to take out Cyril's workers. Cyril realized that it might not work out for him, and he ran to the other side of the mineral line and then back. So he basically just bought a few extra seconds until his Zerglings were out. And then it looked
Just
like
enough time, really.
Yeah, and I think he surrounded the Zerglings when Lambo was drilling in there. So he was able to get the damage output from Lambo. Once that was gone and his own Zerglings were still alive, he had the big advantage.
2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's all it took for the Finnish Phenom to win map number 1 here. After Lambo tried a pretty gutsy build here.
That's the eye gouge of StarCraft, you know. He just kind of ran at him and tried to gouge him in the eyes. Cyril slapped his hand away and said, no. I might, you know, have not been competing in online cups, but I guarantee you I am prepared. And no easy wins there.
He didn't even slap his hands away. Like he lasered his fingers off his hand. Like
Lambo in chat
superpowers.
says this was a level 1 drone pool. Now on to level 2 of the drone pool. A little bit of banter between the two of them, of course, quite friendly there in chat.
Where's the roaches, Big? Come on, let's see some roaches. I want to see you get excited.
Lambo does actually say in chat that he's never seen someone run from one mineral patch to the other side and hide in the other pocket. So he actually complimented Cyril there. He said, big brain gaming. The highest words of praise you can get from a fellow pro gamer. All right, let's launch into map number 2. It is Ephemeron up here in the top left-hand side. Representing against esports, the GOAT, here's Cyril. And down here in the bottom right-hand side, in the blue, representing Clash, it's Lambo. Kind of like Kalaris' new nickname for him, the original bro. Feel like, yeah, you know, Lambo's kind of bro-y as far as pro gamers go.
And you know, we talked a bunch about the potential Cyril versus Maru earlier. Currently, the only 2 players in StarCraft to have over $800,000 in earnings.
Ooh.
And like whoever wins this tournament here, if it's any of the top 5 guys here, being Maru, Cyril, Dark, Innovation, and Rogue, they would become potentially number 1 on that list. That's sick.
So, such a just crazy flash hot career that Cyril has had. And I think sometimes people think he, you know, magically appeared on the scene in 2017 or something when he first made a grand finals. And then 2018, of course, when he won literally everything. That's not the case. He was playing from a very young age, practicing for many years. You know, I remember Cyril as just another one of these kind of middling Grandmaster Zergs on the EU ladder, who I knew was just this young guy, you know, maybe was talented, maybe would work out to be a good player someday, but really was nothing special while, you know, being in the 7th grade or something like that, since he was so young. But boy, he's come a long way.
Yeah, sometimes
really
it takes a while to really have all your practice come to fruition, like really start clicking with the game and understanding everything, all the angles. And that really happened with that guy. He's finally realized his full potential. And I wouldn't be surprised if Serral broke $1 million in earnings this year.
That would be a first for StarCraft 2, and it would be incredible to see. Already so loved by the community. Even, you know, his rival Raynor, stolen his whole brand, is also wearing a fedora now.
It didn't pay off, sadly, for him this tournament.
Unfortunately not. I think he should go back to the cap, maybe.
Oh, it's much more of a mirror build here from both players. We had Metabolic Boost start maybe a little bit earlier here from Serral, but they're gonna take the third base at about the same time. Both players still droning up.
Good map for Ling Bane pressure here, so I'm curious to see if one of them does decide to kind of mount a bit more pressure. Often you'll see very light Zergling Baneling pressure, you know, 10, 12 Zerglings at most on either side, and just really poking and prodding, but not really looking for much more than that. I think the big pattern we've seen evolve in recent years in the Serral meta is you want to hide what you're doing from him, and then you want to make sure you trick him, basically. This is what most players do. They try to deny his scouting, make it look like they're doing one thing, do something else. It's simple conceptually, much harder to execute. In this case, here we go. Roach Warren in the back very early for Lambo. Wouldn't be surprised to just see a big Roach Zergling Baneling. But what we're going to have to keep an eye on is how does he keep Serral's Zerglings out of his base? Serralings are famous because they always find a way in and seem to scout. It seems like Lambo here, actually the one who's first having a poke around, looking for a bit of information. Serral's one's snaking around the south side of the map, waiting for that information. And just drone for Serral. Lambo preparing Overlords. He wants to start very early Roach production. This is a 28 drone Roach Baneling timing attack that Lambo's going for. These Zerglings, they need to get that information.
He saved Lava for a while. Now Serral sees the saturation. He sees the drone pool here to try and prevent those links from getting inside of the main base. Immediately starts his Roach Warren on his side of the map. But the production of Roaches has already started here for Lambo. Yeah, 10 of them on the way here in the production tab. And Serral actually is starting 2 additional Overlords. He's going to be saving Lava for a very long time here to make sure, up until basically this Roach Warren finally finishes, to make a ton of units himself. He knows there is an attack coming. Goes for the follow-up scout, and he's getting links right now because he needs to get units a little bit earlier.
I think that was, I'm not sure whose Zerglings they were that just went down.
Probably Serral. Like, look at the supply. 71 to 49.
That's really nasty. Spinecrawl starting the natural. He can't defend the third base. He realizes this. The Queen's pulling back. He's got to get those Queens in behind the natural wall in. 9 Roaches start up just now for Serral. I like the way these Banelings zoning the high ground, but as the Roaches arrive, he has to pull back, and it's all about buying time here for Serral. He's got to defend these workers in this natural. That's where his advantage lies.
Serral with a perfect defense in game number 1. Can he get it again here? Spinecrawler's about to finish. Lambo's going to come through that wall here. Banelings finally come in. Can they collect onto the links? Lambo's doing such a good job negating that in the first place.
The Banelings did take out a ton of the Zerglings there from Lambo. This Spinecrawler doing work. A Transfuse lands on it. Roach is coming in from all sides and stomped just like that. The sneaky timing attack scouted too early. You've got to hide it better than that. You cannot let Serral.
Any idea how they got past the guards, sir?
None. The surveillance video in the multi-purpose room was exposed to some sort of interference just as the escape was taking place.
Convenient.
Can the video be salvaged? Maybe computer enhanced?
We're trying now. In the meantime, we should get this show on the road.
Duplo. Good to see you.
General Hammond, before we begin, I wish to thank you for allowing me to be the first visitor to your Earth from the Land of Light. It is indeed an honor. My Lord Omok, the Land of Light is a world of eternal brightness where fertility abounds. Our farms produce rich harvests. Our rivers are blessed with fish and fowl. We would be honored to share our land with your people.
You have no idea who or what we are.
We know that you are in need, and that you are here among those who have proven themselves our friends. That is enough.
You're missing the point. His planet is unacceptable to us. These people are even more primitive than you. The idea of creating some kind of behind-the-lines German resistance organization originated with Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler. The original concept was something akin to Otto Skorzeni's commandos, highly trained and well-armed uniform formations, rather than Nazi partisans. Himmler chose SS Obergruppenführer Hans Adolf Potzmann to oversee the organization in autumn 1944, after the German defeat in Normandy had apparently shown him the writing on the wall for Nazi Germany. Interestingly, the Allies were thinking along the same lines as Himmler, and US analysts reported in January 1945 that the Germans were preparing stay-behind forces in preparation for the Allied invasion of Germany. The British and Americans were fairly concerned about a protracted guerrilla campaign behind their lines. Further proof of German intentions seemed to be confirmed when Propaganda Minister Dr. Goebbels made a fiery speech to the German people on the 23rd of March 1945. This speech became known as the Wehrwolf speech, when Goebbels exhorted every German to fight to the death against the invader. The Propaganda Ministry organized Radio Wehrwolf, which began broadcasting on the 1st of April 1945. The show was opened with the sound of a wolf howling and exhorted fighting to the death. These broadcasts unsettled Allied forces further, making troops mistrustful of German civilians. General Potzmann apparently took some measures to turn Himmler's and Goebbels' idea into a reality. A Wehrwolf Central Training Center was established at a castle near Erkelenz, training batches of 200 older Hitler youths and some SS volunteers in each intake. Each regional Gauleiter was ordered to draw up lists of potential recruits for the Wehrwolves, who were then to be trained at locations in the Rhineland or around Berlin. The entire force numbered, apparently, about 5,000, but they were short of weapons, equipment, and training. Some caches of weapons and explosives were created, but most were found by the Soviets or the Allies, while the organization broke down into unrelated or coordinated cells or even individuals who committed some acts of sabotage or assassination against the Allies. The Americans arrested several cells that claimed to be part of Werwolf, groups of servicemen hiding out in remote places, some with US uniforms and kit. But it is clear today that Werwolf was really more of a propaganda success than a physical reality. Some operations have been claimed as Werwolf activities. In March 1945, Himmler ordered the assassination of the American-appointed mayor of Aachen, Franz Oppenhoff, who was duly dispatched by an SS hit squad on the 25th of March. Most assassinations and attacks were in reality conducted by regular German troops or SS in battle conditions, but Goebbels' Werwolf radio was happy to claim responsibility in order to sow alarm and confusion in the Allied ranks. Unfortunately, this resulted in reprisals by Allied troops that, according to historians, killed between 3,000 and 5,000 Germans. Collective punishments, fines and curfews existed in West Germany until 1948. In East Germany it was far worse. The Soviets branded all Hitler Youths as potential werewolves, and more than 10,000 were sent to special camps, hundreds were shot, and in one horrendous case an entire town, Demmin, was burned down, resulting in hundreds of suicides among the population. By the end of 1945, the United States herded 100,000 German civilians into basic camps as a security measure to prevent Werwolf activities. The British also mounting reprisals when Werwolf activities were suspected. In the final analysis, Himmler's idea of a uniformed army behind Allied lines failed to materialize. Dr. Goebbels' effective propaganda ensured that the paranoid Allies and Soviets came down hard on any German who resisted, citing the Werwolf organization as the reason. Goebbels only succeeded in unnecessarily killing yet more Germans when the war was almost over. Werwolf was, in the final analysis, a complete failure. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share.
True. Germany should have surrendered sometime after the US entered the war and at the latest after the Battle of Stalingrad. They should have said that as long as no Axis leadership member or party member is charged with a crime that results in capital punishment, they will surrender. But, you know, it's what happens when you try to play the world government. People will resist, and you'll lose. Pretty. Surely, old friend, you mean adversary. Oh, old adversary. Surely, old friend, you mean adversary. She's pretty. She seems like a good egg.
nautinnollista matkaa. Koe Cafe Reykjavik ja muut kahvikaupungit.
The Roman Empire included large territorial holdings around the Mediterranean Sea in Europe, North Africa, and West Asia. Military campaigns were sent across Europe and North Africa in order for Rome to expand more and more. Their southern border was in North Africa, at the beginning of the Sahara Desert. This arid, mostly uninhabitable place assured a natural border and defense between other civilizations. But also, it stopped the Roman expansion. Little is known about Roman expeditions that existed beyond this point. However, the Romans had a few attempts on exploring deeper into the African continent. Sub-Saharan Africa was explored by Roman expeditions between 19 BC and 19 AD, most likely in an effort to locate the sources of valuable trade goods and establish routes to bring them to the seaports on the coast of North Africa, thereby minimizing disruption in trade caused by conflicts among indigenous tribes and kingdoms. Most of these expeditions began as military campaigns, while the last one may have been initiated in the interests of trade relations, but the purpose of all of them seems to have been in the interests of expanding Roman presence in Africa and locating the source of the most valuable trade goods. In order to let you experience the real ancient Roman war, we decided to partner up with Rise of Kingdoms. In Rise of Kingdoms, the game perfectly makes the alliance system. You may like to play with ancient Rome, freedom, and the best part is, it's totally free. Start a battle and ships with a number of kingdoms in Africa, whose merchants brought goods for trade from the interior to the three great Roman centers on the North African coast, Leptis Magna, Oea, and Sabratha. But the desire for even more goods and direct access to them prompted Roman excursions to the sub-Saharan regions. The 5 expeditions were in 19 BC and in 41, 50, 70, and 90 AD. The cultural impact of the Roman expeditions on the sub-Saharan cultures, in fact, is still debated among scholars. Trade among the different kingdoms and tribes of Africa was already well established by the time the Phoenicians founded Carthage, 332 BCE. The overland trade routes, connections, and seaports had been used by African merchants for centuries, and once the Carthaginians gained a foothold in North Africa, contributed to the wealth, prestige, and power of their central city and others in the region. Trade centers were already established on the North African coast by the semi-nomadic or nomadic Berber tribes of the region, who traded with each other and may have exported goods elsewhere. After 30 BC, following the death of Cleopatra VII, Rome took Egypt and added it to its North African holdings, which was a very important grain supply to Rome. The empire was supplemented through the trade at the cities of Reggio and Tripolitania. Rome had established trade relations with the other kingdoms as well. From West Africa, other traders also brought their items towards Tripolitania, but these trade routes were often disrupted by conflicts between kingdoms or different tribes. It has been suggested that one of the tribes involved in this region's trade were the Garamantes, though this claim has been challenged. It is not known if the Garamantes were directly involved in trade coming from West Africa. However, it's possible that they interrupted trade through raids on caravans, which sparked a response from Rome, leading to the first of Roman expeditions. Lucius Cornelius Balbus, 1st century BC, was proconsul of Africa in 19 BCE, when he was ordered by Augustus Caesar to put down the Garamantes, who were in some way interfering with Roman interests in the Fezzan region of Libya. Balbus led 10,000 legionnaires from Sabratha against the Berber tribe and conquered them. Afterward, and perhaps on his own initiative or on orders, he sent a number of his men onward to explore the Land of Lions, which lay on the other side of the Hagar Mountains in the Central Sahara region. Balbus's men returned with the report of a large body of water, now thought to be the Niger River, and Roman coins and other artifacts have been found in the region, supporting the claim that Balbus's men crossed the mountains and explored the region. This evidence is debated. Another expedition was led by Paulinus. In the course of this campaign in 41 CE, Paulinus led his men over the Atlas Mountains in southern Mauritania. He reached the summit of the mountains after a 10-day march, and according to Pliny, then traveled a significant distance down through the plains to explore along a river referred to as Gur, and then the area around the Daras River, modern Senegal River. Evidence for Roman presence in this region comes from artifacts and coins discovered there, many in and around the city of Akjujd. In 50 AD, one Septimus Flaccus led an expedition from Leptis Magna against a rebellious tribe, which was disrupting trade in the region controlled by the so-called Garamantes. Who Flaccus was is equally unclear, as he is not identified with any legion, and no earlier mention is made of him. Some scholars have suggested that the geographer Ptolemy, who wrote the account of Flaccus's expedition based on an earlier source, got his name wrong. Probably this was the case, or he may have omitted information he felt was unnecessary. Flaccus must have had some military background, however, in order to command a force that led them successfully against whatever group of people was causing the problem in the southern regions. Usually, military commanders were sent in military expeditions. This possible general marched into Garamantes' territory and subdued them. He then traveled on over the Tabesti Mountains and into the land known as Agasimba, which was north of a great body of water known as the Lake of Hippopotamus and Rhinoceros. This lake has been identified as Lake Chad. Flaccus's expedition is the first one known to have interacted with the populace of this region at any length, but no details are available on what this contact consisted of. Scholars agree that Agasimba was to the north of Lake Chad, but as the lake was much larger at the time, precisely where it was, how large the region, and who lived there is unknown. It is assumed it was controlled by the Garamantes. However, Festus concluded business with the Garamantes. They seem to have been on friendly terms with Rome 20 years later, when one Julius Maternus led an expedition into their territories. The problem with sources regarding this expedition is that it is unclear who Maternus was and what position, diplomat, merchant, or military commander, he held. There is no mention of Maternus before or after this expedition, and details of the excursion itself seem to support any of the three possibilities. He traveled in the company of the Garmantian king, and so as a diplomat could have been forging better political relations. As a merchant, forging better trade relations. As a general, helping the king to put down rebellious subjects, which would have benefited them both. Anyway, whoever he was and whatever position he held, Maternus's success seems to have been based on the reports of the expeditions which went before him. Like Flaccus, he crossed the Tabesti Mountains and explored Agasimba, and like Festus and Balbus, explored the region around the Niger River. However, an expedition was also sent to go find to sources of the Nile and went beyond the Sudan. All these expeditions were supported by legionnaires and had mainly a commercial purpose. Only the one conducted by the Emperor Nero seemed to be a preparative for the conquest of Ethiopia or Nubia. In 62 AD, 2 legionnaires explored the source of the Nile. One of the main objectives of the exploration was to locate and obtain gold, using camels to transport it overland back to Roman provinces in the Mediterranean coast. Sea voyages between Rome and North Africa, conversely, could be completed in less than a month, and so were much more lucrative, and further safer for both investors and crew. Although there is no defining document explicitly stating why the overland expeditions were launched, it is reasonable to conclude, based on the nature of the military campaigns and the Roman independence on African goods, why the Romans didn't expand deeper into Africa is because of a multitude of reasons. But this is a topic for another video. Again, a big thank you to our sponsor, Rise of Kingdoms. Also, a new patch update of this game coming.
Ihmekös noi onkin se. Mikä se nyt olikaan, joku Iron Cross-peli, se nyt kuitenkin oli joku erittäin vanha VV2-peli, niin ihmekös siinä noi Char 2 tankit onkin niin saatana vaikeita tuhota, jos se on ollut historian isoin tankki. Ne rullaa vielä tossa vaiheessa natsien tankit ja jalkaväivitty ihan kympillä. No. They could do some pretty wicked damage though. Because even if they had mechanized abilities or motorized abilities, they'd run out of fuel for those things fairly quickly, and once they ran out of fuel, they would be at complete mercy of the cavalry. You would be about 600 against 1,000,000. Nobody would like those odds.
Mulle on kerääntynyt vuosien mittaan ihan hirveä määrä erilaisia purkitettuja ruokia ja muita säilykkeitä sun muuta. Ja mä en ole keksinyt niille mitään käyttöä, mutta nyt on se aika. Moni näistä on oikeasti ollut jo pari vuotta mulla tuolla kaapissa. Mä en ole vaan syönyt näitä ja tänään tulettekin näkemään, miltä purkitettu hampurilainen näyttää, miltä purkitettu leipä näyttää, purkitettua munakasta, vanhoja kunnon jauhomatoja teen. Tää ei ole ehkä samanlainen haaste, mitä mulla on normaalisti, mutta mä oon halunnut tehdä tän. Ja tässä mulla on siis edessä 2,1 kilon edestä purkitettuja sapuskoja, jotka mä aion syödä. Ehkä mitenhän ällöttävän makuisia nää on. Aika lähtee. Ensimmäisenä totta kai aamupalaan. Nimittäin meillä on tässä purkitettua munakasta, ainakin jos käänsin oikein. Ja tää on ollut pari vuotta tuolla mulla kaapissa. Siis tän piti olla munakasta. Tässä on mun munakas. Mikä tää on? Voit sä tarkistaa? En mä tajunnut, että nää on eri. Tää siis näyttää siltä, että tää ehkä on homeessa. Toivottavasti ei, mutta tän pitäisi olla se munakas.
Toi on sit makea ruoka, mikä siinä lautassa.
Eli toi vieressä oleva on siis jälkiruoka. Mulla on nyt tää ruokailu jaettu 2 osaan. Eli anteeksi, tässä mulla on tämä hieno munakas.
Voin kyllä luvata, että toi on mätä.
Siis kylmänä, koska näin maailmanlopun aikana ei toki ole sähköä tai muuta. Okei, anteeksi. Mulla on tässä, kuten huomaatte, sokeroituja pannukakkuja rusinoilla. Ja mitä tässä vieressä on? Munakas perunoilla ja possulla. Pari vuotta kaapissa tää munakas. Ei missään kylmässä tosiaankaan. Ihan hyvä.
Sulla on nyt rautainen maksaja, vaan sä et sä kestä tuollaista mädäntynyttä ruokaa.
Ravitseva pääruoka syöty. Purkitettua pannukakkua. Ja pitää sanoa, että on syönyt huonompiakin pannareita. Tällaisiaköhän säilykkeitä honipakkikin ja muut rikkaat YouTubettajat syö. Ei vielä syödä ihan tätä herkullista leipää, vaan varmasti montaa kiinnostaa. Eli syödään tässä lounas purkitettu hampurilainen. Ahaa. Täällä on jotain paperikääröjä. Nääkin on siis ollut pari vuotta mulla tuolla. Vitsi kun mä en oo ihan varma. Onks tää syötävää. Tän pitäis vielä säilyä 8 vuotta. Mut miksikäs hyvä hampurilainen menis? Tää on keskeltä nyt leikattu ja tää näyttää itse asiassa ihan hyvältä. Tää tuoksuu ihan hirveelle. Siis niinku ihan sellaiselle jollekin säilöntäaineelle tai jotain, mutta...
Be brave!
On aika herkku tämä hampurilainen. Tästä ei ensinnäkään tunnista maulta, niin kuin, että syöks mä tällä hetkellä tätä sämpylää vai tätä pihviä vai täällä välissä olevia asioita. Kai sipulia tai jotain muut vastaavaa noitten pitäisi olla. Mutta mikä tärkeintä, että vaikka hampurilaisia ei enää saisi mistään, jos te omistatte näitä, niin voitte nauttia edelleen hampurilaisista. Oikeesti siis näiden pitäisi säilyä 8 vuotta. Kai tän kuuluu maistua tältä. Joo, siis pitää sanoa, että se ei maistunut homeelle. Et en mä niinku usko, että toi tosiaankaan homeessa oli, mutta ei makeaa mahan täydeltä, joten nää nyt ei oo välttämättä niin jänniä, mutta mä kuitenkin halusin ajatella, että jos maailmanloppu tulee, niin ötököitä löytyy aina. Tässä meillä on oikein maukkaan näköisiä sirkkoja. Mitä ihmettä? Tuliko mulle joku kohtaus? Et jos nyt näitä liian kauan lähtee tuijottaa näitä kirkkoja tässä,
Joo.
sitten vähän upealle.
Siinä on sitten Bugburger.
En mä tiedä, että onko teistä kukaan sirkkoja syönyt aikaisemmin, mutta no tosiaan ihan jees. No sitten, suklaa kuitenkin yleensä saattaa kestää aika pitkiäkin aikoja. Mutta tässä mulla on tällaista vähän erikoisempaa suklaata, jota mä sain itse asiassa nyt joululahjaksi. Nimittäin tässä on suklaata, missä on kalaa laitettu tänne. Kaikkihan kuitenkin nyt tietää, että kala on terveellistä, niin sitä kun laittaa mihin tahansa, niin myös siitäkin asiasta tulee terveellistä. No niin, eli tässä on tosiaan kuivattua kuorta. Kuohe täällä. Miksi mä sanon onks mulla joku aivovamma tosta? Niinku silakan ja joku sirkan risteytys. Kalaa syönyt. Ja kyllä se on ihan tuoreena parempaa. Seuraavaksi pitää syödä vähän tällaista välipalaa, niin mä ajattelin, että tässä mulla on purkitettua hirveää. Ja tässä on leipää. Niin tehdään hirvileipä. Toivottavasti tää on sainhan mä sen vihdoin ulos. Siinä on 500 grammaa purkitettua leipää. Taas miltä se näyttää. Keskeltä. Siis tää alkuun jotenkin se tuoksu, mikä täältä tuli, niin se oli aivan niin järkyttävä. Tää itse asiassa tuoksuu ihan nyt hyvälle. Jotta nämä mahtavat ruispalat voimme syödä, niin suurimman nautinnon tarjoaa hirveä. Niin herkullista hirveää. Oi miten mahtavaa. Maistetaan nytten purkitettua leipää ja purkitettua hirveää yhdessä. Leipä varsinkin on ihan jees. Tää hirvi nyt on lähinnä, mulle tulee, onko se maksapasteja vai mitä intistä mieleen. Tää sitten leivässä yksissä oli melkein 1300 kilokaloria. Tää on niinku, tää on niinku niin tiivis leipää kuin olleen vai. Seuraavaksi me tässä nää on kai syötäviä. Kyllä. Miettikää, että tässä on 50 grammaa. Matosia. Siis niinku tällaisetkään syötävät madot, niin ei nää maistu oikeastaan millekään, että vai jollekin mausteille. Nää niinku maistuu aika kähähtäneelle. Säästelin tätä tosiaan toisiksi viimeiseksi. Vähän erikoisempaa suklaata taas. Nimittäin tässä mulla on suklaata, mikä sisältää savustettua ja kuivattua poronlihaa. Poronlihahan on sinänsä oikein hyvä kaikissa muodoissa, mutta enpä ikinä suklaan sisällä kokeillut. Oikeesti kun syö tällaisia semi-ällöttäviä ruokia, niin ehkä aivot rupeaa aikaisemmin sanomaan, että nope, älä syö enempää. Mut tää nyt vaikuttaa ihan hyvältä idealta. Hyi helvetti, siis tää hampurilainen oli ihan hirveä. Jos mä saisin tällä hetkellä päättää, että söisinkö mä Surströmmingiä vai tätä hampurilaista, niin mä söisin mieluummin Surströmmingiä. Siis joo, pitää sanoa, että tää hampurilainen nyt vaan ikävä kyllä. Sen kuuluu vissiin haistaa ja maistua tolta, eli ei siinä oo mitään vikana. Miten mua voi ällöttää hampurilainen näin paljon? Herra Jumala, se on hampurilainen. Tämä on hyvää hampurilaista. Mulla ei siis oo täällä pelkästään vettä, vaan mehua, koska mä haluan jollain peittää vähän tätä hampurilaisen makua. Jos maailmassa loppuu jonkun takui hampurilaiset ja nämä olisi ainoat mitä niinku pitäisi syödä, niin en söisi hampurilaisia. Mä en siis tiedä mistä nämä on edes tullut, en tiedä mistä kaupasta on tullut, mutta tilatkaa ihmeessä ja maistakaa. Mä haluan nimittäin nähdä, että kuuluuko näiden maistua ja näyttää tältä. Siis mä luulin, että tää on ihan sellainen niin läpihuuto juttu, hauska haaste. Vähän ehkä oudolle maistuu jotkut näistä, mutta oli aika karseita. Ja mä en oo siis ihan täysin varma, että voisiko mun kuulunut syödä enää Puhekis kyllä luki, että se vielä 2028 niin kun on jees. Tadaa! Siinä oli karanteenihaastetta tai jotain muut vastaavaa. Eipähän tarvi enää ikinä syödä purkitettua hampurilaista. Sitä ette ikinä tuu näkee tällä kanavalla. ilmoitusluontoista asiaa myös, että tosiaan kun tarkoituksella vähän niin kuin pidin tätä paitaa ja pitää sanoa, että näyttää pahasti siltä, että kaikki omat tulevat kilpasyömisjutut on peruttu tältä vuodelta. Sitten ensi vuodella kisataan enemmän kansainvälisesti ja pyritään sinne top 3, mistä mä olen viime vuodesta asti haaveillut ja tehdään töitä vielä enemmän sen eteen. Ja ehkä sitten tänä vuonna pystyy keskittymään enemmän tähän YouTubeen ja yrittää tehdä mahdollisimman siistejä ja hauskoja haasteita teille. Ja vahvamiesjuttuihin, jota löytyy mun toiselta kanavalta. Toi ei yökä. Mulla ei mitään oksennusrefleksiä tuu, kun mä syön suurströmmingiä. Ja harvoin asia tällöttää. Mut toi hampurilainen.
In the last months of 1942, the German forces were encircled at Stalingrad. At first, the Germans hoped to reverse the situation by relieving the pocket and maintaining it by air supply. However, as 1943 began, the Germans were forced to abandon their plans to relieve the city and were pushed back from its approaches. Despite that, they ordered their troops in Stalingrad to hold out as long as possible in order to tie up Soviet units and buy time. The advance of the Red Army created the possibility of the German troops in the Caucasus to be cut off. They ordered a full withdrawal from the region while their forces in the north kept the path of retreat open. The main effort of the Red Army was, however, directed against the Hungarian and Italian units on the northern flank. Their lightly equipped forces were unable to hold the line and were forced into a harsh winter retreat. Most of them lost their combat capabilities or were destroyed, leaving a large gap in the Axis lines. The German units in the north had also to retreat, but they were able to keep their battle-worthiness intact. At the same time, the Germans managed to pull back part of their forces from the Caucasus. The remaining troops formed a bridgehead on the coast to retain the opportunity for a summer push towards the oil fields. During January, both sides had their full attention set on the southern sector. The lack of the German reserves allowed the Red Army to achieve two small but significant victories. They re-established a land connection to Leningrad, and in the central part of the front they captured the railway junction of Veliki Luki. For the Axis, the situation in the south continued to deteriorate. The German troops in Stalingrad surrendered, freeing up significant numbers of Soviet units. The Red Army forces moving west into the Ukraine were not very formidable, but the large gap in the Axis line left them little opposition. The Soviet command decided to exploit this opportunity and attempted to cut off almost all of the army group south. In response, the Germans used the forces retreating from the Caucasus to extend their front eastwards and pull their main force west. The Red Army moved further west to bypass their line and encircle them, but this overextended their forces. The Germans counterattacked from two sides and disorganized their forward detachments. Having caught the Soviet southern flank off balance, the Germans now wanted to push in both from north and south at the same time, destroying the whole Soviet force. They began to muster their units for the northern attack. In the south, their troops continued onwards, retaking Kharkov. But in the north, they failed to concentrate a force sufficient for the attack, though they were able to stop the Red Army's advance. By this time, both the Soviets and the Germans had exhausted their forces and went on defensive. As the fighting in the south had drawn all German reinforcements, the Red Army prepared to launch a major offensive in the north and center. The Germans realized the danger and responded by abandoning their most vulnerable positions before the Soviets had finished deployment, and the attacks that took place failed to achieve their goals. Being confronted with a much stronger German line, the Red Army abandoned its offensive plans and the Eastern Front became quiet. With the end of the winter campaign, the Axis had lost the capabilities necessary to knock the Soviet Union out of the war by capturing the areas vital for its war effort. Now they planned to win through attrition by holding on to the occupied areas and inflicting vast casualties to the attacking Red Army. In this way, they could drain the areas remaining under the Soviet control, dry up resources, and create a stalemate. The Red Army, on the other hand, set out to take back the economically vital western lands of the Soviet Union, which would give it a strategic advantage. However, this time they would play it safe. Their previous offensives had been threatened by the German armored counterattacks, and this time they decided to receive them on prepared defenses. At the same time, with building up the fortifications, the Red Army formed a massive offensive force. As part of their defense strategy, the Germans planned a number of limited offensives to encircle Soviet forces and shorten their defensive line. The most promising of these was the encirclement of the Soviet units in the Kursk salient. It took 3 months for the German build-up to match the gradually improved Soviet defenses, and in the beginning of July they launched their attack. The Germans made some headway, but were ultimately stopped dead in the depth of the Soviet defenses. Having for the time tied up the strongest German armored units, the Red Army now released its forces for the offensive. The attacks were to be carried out in consecutive stages along several sectors of the front. First, the Red Army struck into the rear of the German troops north of Kursk. Being unable to contain the attack and wishing to avoid the danger of encirclement, the Germans began the process of evacuating the salient. At the same time, the Red Army launched an attack in the south. The Germans redeployed their forces and contained it. By this time, the Soviet units south of Kursk had finished reorganization and pushed towards Kharkov. The Germans redeployed their forces to the sector but failed to hold the city, though succeeded in temporarily containing the Soviet advance. The situation in the north was more under the German control. The Red Army failed to break through the German defenses near Smolensk. At the same time, the Germans had finished their withdrawal to the new line, strengthening their positions further. By this time, the Germans had been able to maintain the balance and check the Red Army's attacks. However, the renewal of the Soviet offensive near the sea broke the German line and forced them into a large-scale retreat. Even more, the concurrent offensive against the lightly fortified German positions on the former western edge of the Kursk salient resulted in a breakthrough the Germans weren't able to contain. They now realized that they lacked the troops necessary to contain the Soviets in their present line and ordered a retreat to a much better defendable Panther-Wotan position that was centered around the Dnieper River and its tributaries. At the same time, the Soviet breakthrough near Smolensk hastened the retreat of Army Group Center. With the German forces taking a stronger defensive position, the Red Army had to concentrate its main effort on a shorter section of the front. They decided to make regaining western Ukraine the main priority. First, however, we'll take a look at the central part of the front, where the Red Army had outrun the Germans to the Dnieper and had established a breachhead on the junctions of the Army Group Center and South. They planned to trap the whole Army Group Center by combined strikes from the breachhead and from a breakthrough in the north, while the other forces would pin the Germans in place. In October, while part of the Red Army was still recovering from the pursuit, battles were fought in order to secure the breachhead. Meanwhile, the other forces began creating a breach in the northern part of the front. With their main focus being in the south, the Red Army had established several breachheads over the Dnieper in Ukraine. After they had got their heavy equipment over the river, they attempted local breakouts, first of which took place in the south. The Germans were able to contain it. Then the Soviets broke through the German land front, severing their connection with the Crimea. They proceeded with another breakout attempt near Kiev, but the Germans redeployed their troops and pushed it back towards the river. Having not fully succeeded in the breakouts, the Red Army adopted a more systematic approach, slowly but surely expanding its breachheads and massing troops for a larger breakout. In the center, the Red Army was now better prepared, which allowed it to increase the pressure. It resulted in a breakthrough in the north. The Germans held on to the flanks in the hopes of conducting a counterattack and cutting the Soviet forces off. Then the Soviets launched their main attack from the southern breachhead. It broke through the lines and gained limited success, though it failed to achieve its objective. The Germans were able to prevent a deeper breakthrough by abandoning territory and pulling back their front line. As 1943 ended, the Red Army was ready for the winter offensive, which would encompass the whole Soviet-German front. In Ukraine, the Germans had concentrated their defenses in the Great Bend of the Dnieper. This allowed the Red Army to catch them off balance by mounting a breakout from the Kiev breachhead. The Germans managed to contain their advance only with great difficulties. They wanted to keep their last position near the Dnieper River as a staging area for a possible counterattack and did not evacuate it despite the evident threat. The Red Army exploited this by cutting the salient off with a two-pronged attack. The Germans launched a rescue attempt and were able to retrieve part of the encircled forces, but without their heavy equipment. With the German attention directed towards the pocket, the Soviet forces launched attacks on the flanks, threatening to sever the connection between the army groups south and center. Meanwhile, Soviet troops were continuing with their attempt to encircle Army Group Center itself. In the north, the Germans realized they lacked the force to cut off the Red Army's breakthrough and abandoned the exposed salients. The Red Army now attempted to encircle the town of Vitebsk, but it was not met with success. Most of the Red Army's offensive assets were deployed in the south, and as a result, the goals of the Soviet forces in the center proved to be beyond the means to achieve them. The offensives took limited territory at the price of large casualties and were eventually abandoned. During the summer, the Soviet pressure on the Army Group North had not been as strong as against the other army groups, and the Germans had dispatched a lot of its strength to other fronts. Despite its greatly reduced strength, the army group had not withdrawn to the shorter line and still held its forward positions. The Red Army attempted to encircle part of the German forces during the winter offensive. The Germans evaded the encirclement and then attempted to resist on the new positions, but they lacked the strength to do so, and it was decided to withdraw to the Panther Line. Both armies settled on the new line, and during the remaining part of the winter, the Red Army undertook only some limited attacks in order to probe the German defenses. The Red Army was planning to achieve its main success in the south. During the preceding half-year, the Soviet forces were slowly but steadily consolidating their positions on the west bank of the Dnieper, and by the beginning of March, this process was complete. The German Army Group South was by then pushed into the open plains and did not retreat behind any other natural obstacle, leaving it vulnerable. The Soviets wanted to pin the whole army group to the Carpathian Mountains or the Black Sea and destroy it. The Axis were unable to resist the Soviet tank armies and the whole front fell back. Near the Black Sea they began pulling back their forces, but in the west the Red Army encircled several German corps. The Soviets made the mistake by expecting the Germans to retreat southwards, which allowed them to extract most of the trapped force back to their front lines. Then the Red Army captured the Crimea as the last operation of the winter campaign. The Soviet Union had taken back its most economically valuable lands and gained the resources it needed to defeat Germany completely. However, with the front being still more close to Moscow than Berlin, the question was, how long shall it take? The Germans, meanwhile, had other problems to deal with. The Western Allies had landed in Italy and were preparing to do the same in France. The race to Berlin was on.
Yeah.
Hello guys, made it home. I'm in Poland. It's almost 2 a.m. Happy to be back home. Took a long shower. I unpacked some stuff. Now I'm having a small home spa. It's a mud mask. Of course, I'm still having so many bruises on my face, on my chest. The swelling went down, but I feel better. So we good. We good. About to go to sleep. I cannot wait to enjoy my family and friends. But be safe, guys. Okay, be safe.